If you're sitting in this room, you probably already have a pretty good general idea of how to give a speech. What I want to talk to you about today is how to choose a good, interesting speech topic and develop it into a full speech. First, let's talk about some criteria for choosing a good topic. It should be something that you're very interested in or passionate about. For example, since I'm currently very passionate about piano, I might want to do a speech about it. It should also be a topic that other people are likely to be interested in. For example, even if I had an extreme interest in couches, I would probably still avoid this topic because other people are likely to find it kind of boring. You should try to avoid topics that are not interesting to you because being interested in a topic will always make the speech more fun for you. Some questions you can ask yourself to decide a good topic that fits this criteria are: what are you interested in? What are your hobbies? And what do you care about? It also needs to be something that can be turned into a full speech. It would be better to do a speech on something with many aspects that can be spoken about, such as music, science, or the history of technology, as opposed to topics that are based from a single fact. An example of a topic that wouldn't fit this criteria would be how to open a can of soup. It should also be something that can be understood by most people. It would be better to give a speech on some very basic music forms than the ratio between the way that different intervals resonate with each other. You should know your audience. Make sure that the age you're speaking to will be able to understand and relate to what you're talking about. An example of a not understandable topic would be one of my earlier speeches in which I tried to explain the method for solving a Rubik's Cube, a topic more fit for hours of one-on-one lessons. A better way to do this topic would be to talk more generally about the world of cubing. Even if a topic is relatively easy to understand, if there's so much you need to know to even get a basic idea of it, you should try to avoid this topic. For example, how to tell if a plant is edible or not. Most topics, however, can be cut down to a 5 to 7 minute speech. For instance, about 2 years ago, I wanted to write a speech on the history of roller coasters, and my first draft was almost 12 minutes long, but I still managed to bring it down to a more manageable size. A few things to think about for developing a topic are splitting up the topic into different smaller topics. For example, I might split up cubing into types of cubes, world records, and history. Depending on how big or small the topics are, you might combine them into one speech or write multiple. You should make sure to have a clear and natural transition between these smaller topics. For example, in a cubing speech, I could transition from the history of cubing to the progression of world records to the world records of different types of puzzles / cubes / mentally challenging rotating things. You should also try to use as many examples as possible. These will add quite a bit of time to your speech and make it easier for people to understand. They will also cement whatever you're talking about into people's minds better. Visual aids are a good way of doing this. However, it is generally not a good idea to have any large amount of information in your slides that is not mentioned elsewhere in your speech. People shouldn't generally have to rely on your slide. People shouldn't generally need to rely on your visuals to understand what you're talking about. They should supplement your speech with more examples and provide a general outline of what you're talking about. So, when starting a speech from scratch, you can think of the decisions you make as a branching tree. So, first, if I started off with 2 topic ideas, such as neuroscience and piano, I want to pick the one that is both interesting to me and the audience, understandable, and broad enough to talk about for 5 to 7 minutes. In this case, the option to go with would be piano. Then, I would want to develop on that topic. My 2 options this time could be stating a bunch of random facts with no clear relation to each other, or splitting it up into 3 different sections about different areas of piano. The case here would be the second one. Now, say I wanted to add some visual aids. I could provide visual examples of my topic, complementing what I'm talking about, or I could add some that include additional information that is not mentioned in my speech. the choice here would be the first one because, again, the audience shouldn't be required to do additional work to understand what you're talking about. After following these steps, I already have a pretty good basis for my speech. So, I hope these tips will help you with your future speeches. The most important thing is to just have fun. My favorite speeches have all been on things that I've been passionate about. Cubing, roller coasters, balloon twisting, and dominoes, for example. And just remember, at least you don't have to write a speech on writing a speech. Thank you.